First, welcome and thank you for joining us today for this cybersecurity workshop. Evident Solutions is a premier forensics company with an impressive roster of experts, and your host today is Jeff Martin. He's a key member of our expert witness team, and his focus is on digital forensics. Jeff brings a wealth of knowledge and experience in both the cybercrime and digital forensics arenas. In addition to his work at ESI, Jeff is an adjunct instructor at Northern Michigan University, teaching cybercrime and computer hacking forensic investigations. Jeff has allowed time in today's workshop for some informal polling to guide our discussion, as well as time for questions and answers at the end of his presentation. Please keep an eye on the chat section for polling questions and important links. You can also use this feature to let us know if there's anything in particular you would like Jeff to address. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff.
All right, thanks. Just want to make sure everybody can hear me because I just muted Rick so that it doesn't come through my speaker and then back through my microphone. Awesome. Thanks, Rick. I appreciate the introduction. I'm really excited to share this information with you guys today. I just want to start out by saying this is an informal webinar, just trying to keep it basic. I'm sure most of you have heard the majority of the information I'm going to present. It's all pretty standard cybersecurity stuff, but I did reach out and obtain some recent examples so that we can look at what's happening in the cybersecurity realm today. So one of the first things that I wanted to accomplish is I just kind of wanted to poll the audience right away and see exactly who I'm talking to, whether I'm talking to IT and or security specific employees, if I'm talking to C-suite decision makers, owners, business owners, if I'm talking to end user employees or individuals. So I'm going to launch the first poll and let's see who we're talking to today. I'm going to also apologize preemptively for some coughing. I'm at the tail end of the seasonal allergy cold that I get in the fall every year. And about 30 minutes before this webinar started, I had a coughing fit that lasted a good 10 minutes. And it probably wouldn't be pretty if that happens again while I'm doing this, but I may just have some residual dry cough. It's the dry tickle thing that's left over. So hopefully you don't hear me cough too many times. Just waiting for a couple more responses. It looks like we have, it doesn't look like we have any IT and or security employees on here, which is a good thing for me because that means there's nobody on here that can sharpshoot what I'm about to present. So pretty even across the board. Looks like a couple of C-suite decision makers, a little bit more end user employees, and a couple of individuals. So let's get started with this presentation. So what I want to talk about today is, the main function of cybersecurity is to prevent data breaches in the business realm and also to protect your personal and financial information in the private realm. So we're going to talk just about what data breaches are looking like today and what they might be looking like in the future. Also going to talk about who are the threat actors, because I think it's really important to understand who out there is exactly trying to compromise our systems in the business world, but also compromise our personal information and ultimately steal either private information or private finances. There's a couple of takeaways that I want to make sure happens in this webinar, and one of those is who is responsible for security, who or what system is your weakest link, and then ultimately what can we do as individuals and business partners to prevent cybersecurity incidents from occurring. So what do we know about data breaches? Obviously, we see data breaches in the news Probably, the major data breach is probably about one a month is the going rate from what I can tell. I don't watch a lot of news, but I see the headlines in the social media apps and stuff that I use. And what does that mean in the business world? And what does that mean to you as an individual? So as an individual, one of the biggest information that threat actors are out there trying to obtain from you is personally identifiable information. I'm sure we've all seen this term, PII. It's the information that is sought after and required to pretty much conduct financial fraud on your individual persons. So things like your mother's maiden name, your social security number, your addresses, which some of this information is public information. But what a lot of people don't understand is by broadcasting and giving out public information to unknown threat actors, you could be assisting them in obtaining the actual information that it takes to conduct financial fraud or data breach on your individual self. The most lucrative cyber attacks that are taking place today is phishing and whaling. They're kind of the same thing. Phishing is ultimately the threat actor just phishing for information from you, and they can do that in a number of different ways that we'll talk about. Emails, phone calls, social media reading, and we'll get into that later. And then whaling, you might not have heard of whaling, but whaling is the same thing as phishing, except the target is a big fish, a whale. And those targets are typically just people with more assets or maybe more important positions in a business on the scale of size. So whaling would be targeting a CEO or even the director of security to obtain their personal information so that they can exploit them to get bigger information and bigger rewards. Ransomware is really popular these days. I know locally, and I do live in a small community, ransomware happens frequently. And it's often costly to the organization to get their data back. Credential surfing, malware, and VPN exploitation. We won't get as far into those. Those are pretty common, and I think everybody's pretty much aware of those. Credential surfing, trying to obtain your credentials, and malware getting exploited with viruses and vulnerabilities. And then VPN exploitation is becoming very popular since COVID because a lot more people are working remotely. So VPN exploitation made the list of the top 6 lucrative cyber attacks in 2020 and 2021. Phishing still ranks #1 by most hackers or nefarious actors because it's so easy to do and it's often successful. Cyber criminals are quick to find ways to get around strengthened security, and the malware just keeps on coming. Here's some statistics on successful attacks. The funny thing about statistics is once you research topics such as cybersecurity breaches in the US in 2021, you find a lot of different numbers when it comes to statistics. So I don't like to tie myself to statistics too much, but basically, and I'm sure we're all aware, cybersecurity incidences are increasing every year. They're increasing because the internet is becoming more available. It's becoming easier to conduct cybercrime on the internet, and the rewards, the success of the nefarious actors are increasing as well because of the methods that they're using to obtain the information or the breach that they're intending on obtaining. It's becoming easier and easier for them, and so it's becoming more lucrative, a more lucrative business. Here's some notable breaches in 2021. I like the Ubiquiti Inc., one of the biggest Internet of Things technology vendors. If you don't know the term Internet of Things, you should absolutely know what Internet of Things means. And Internet of Things stands for all of the internet connected devices that consumers are putting in their homes today. So your Alexa speakers, your Google Dots, your Apple Pods, your coffee makers, refrigerators, stoves are connected to the internet now. Light bulbs, trying to think of TV streaming service sticks, Fire Sticks, all of those things connect to the internet. They're all found in your home, and they're all access points for nefarious actors to obtain access to your home network. That is why I wanted to cue in on Ubiquiti, because it's one of the biggest breaches. Of course, the nefarious actors are going to go after the lowest hanging fruit. Well, what happened when all these manufacturers were making all these home devices because everybody wants convenience, everybody wants everything to be connected? I mean, who doesn't want their fridge to order more groceries when the refrigerator knows that the milk has been emptied? But what happened is these manufacturers produced all of these devices, made them internet capable, but didn't have any security in mind when they built them. So they basically were manufactured fast and furious with open doors to your home network. And a lot of fraud took place in the initial couple of years of those devices hitting consumers. Now with legislature and stuff like that, the companies are being required to provide more and more built-in security to these devices so that doesn't happen. But that is something to be concerned about if you are tech savvy like me. I like tech and I like to be connected to all kinds of things. But we just have, as consumers, we have to be aware that these are doors to our home networks that can be exploited by threat actors. And you'll hear me talk about your vulnerabilities at home and in the business because they both apply to both, right? If you are an employee of a business and your home network is compromised, your business could also potentially be compromised. If you're a business employee and your business is compromised, your personal information could also be compromised. So it really doesn't make that much of a difference when we're talking about cybersecurity awareness and prevention of cyber incidents for the individual and also the businesses that we work for or own. Another interesting breach in 2021 was the Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I should have added a poll. How many people in the group use Facebook, Instagram, and or LinkedIn? And I would imagine that at least 90% of you probably use these applications or platforms. So when something like that gets breached, it pretty much touches almost everybody that we know, right? US Cellular was also compromised, and then Microsoft Exchange. If you worked in a business about 6 months ago, you would have felt the Microsoft Exchange breach because that breach had to be patched immediately in businesses. So if you work for businesses, your IT department was probably fast and furious trying to update, prevent nefarious actors from entering through that vulnerability. So those are just some of the major breaches that happened in 2021. When I researched notable breaches in 2021, the list was too long. I couldn't even tell you how many was on the total list for 2021 alone. So who are these threat actors? Who is out there trying to obtain our personally identifiable information? Who's out there trying to access data in our businesses? Back in the day, back when I first started in cybersecurity, we were mainly worried about the individual hackers. And I'll talk about Kevin Mitnick a little bit in this presentation. Kevin Mitnick, in my education, was one of the original hackers from the United States. If you know the name Kevin Mitnick, you know at 16 he was hacking Bell Telephone Company. And I think he was one of the first hackers under the age of 18 that was on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list for the amount of hacking that he was able to accomplish in a very short period of time. We no longer really worry about the Kevin Mitnick spill. Kevin Mitnick is actually a consultant, a security consultant. He did, after serving some time and paying his justice back, he did become a hacker for the good side of things, and actually did some consulting for the United States government, and now owns his own consulting company. So he does a lot of good things for us now. But we don't worry about as much about those individual hackers anymore. What we have now in our environment is we have cyber gangs. We have organized crime, which is kind of the same as a cyber gang. Organized crime in the United States has been converted to digital hackers for, I've been seeing that for about 8 to 10 years now. Why do you think organized criminals, and we're talking mafia, we're talking gangs, we're talking any of the well-known organized crimes organizations in the United States, why do you think they went to cyber hacking or cyber incidents? I'm trying to queue up a poll here. Okay, I just have to end that poll. And then we have cyber criminal organizations, which is basically the rename of organized crime, so it's the same name. And then the scary threat actors are government-backed organizations. Government-backed organizations. So you have countries like China, Russia, North Korea, who have paid military units. I'm not sure how much they get paid, some of those countries, but the biggest realization that we need to have is there are countries, whole countries, that have army units or military units of hackers on the internet attempting to hack your businesses and your personal information on a daily basis. And then basically they're all the same people. Why are they all the same people? Because when a hacker, everything hackers do is mainly open source, or it's reversible and easy for other hackers to learn how one hacker was able to compromise the system. So what that means is the example of the Microsoft Exchange vulnerability. It took one hacker or maybe a team of hackers to locate that vulnerability and exploit it. But then almost every other hacker in the community learned of that vulnerability within minutes, hours, days. And so when you have an exploit or when you're compromised, it's pretty much open information in the hacker community because they share everything. And not only do they share everything, even if they try to keep it private, when the cybersecurity professionals go in and reverse engineer it to try and figure out who did it, that's all gained as public knowledge as well. So hacking is an evolving, constant learning environment where they're all sharing information with each other so that they can get better and exploit more people and ultimately make more money on their nefarious activity. I talked about whaling a little bit earlier. Whaling, an example of whaling is a phishing attack on a big target like a CEO. Gangs, these cyber organized crime gangs, will study the CEO or their target's social media for months. And I really like to bring up social media because what's one thing that we do or that we see on social media pretty common that we might not know is providing information to hackers. And I'm going to, I thought I had a poll question that had to do with that, but it's not here. All right. So I wanted to pull how many of you have filled out any of those questionnaires on Facebook or social media. I'll say Facebook, but it's mainly social media. Those questionnaires like put a star next to how many countries you visited, or answer questions and accumulate points to see how many points you can accumulate out of 300. You get like 5 points for being divorced. You get 5 points for being married. You get 5 points for each kid you have. They're just fun quizzes that I see a lot of people participating in online because it's a means of putting out some of your information to your Facebook friend group. And then it's supposed to, in most people's eyes, it's supposed to garner or fester conversations with your friends. So friends will take the same quiz as you, you'll compare quizzes, and you'll have conversations about it, and can do all that from the comfort of your home, probably wearing your sweatpants, cooking dinner, laundry, and whatever else you might be accomplishing at the same time. Those quizzes are actually designed to obtain information from you. Most of those quizzes are designed by cyber criminal organizations or hackers, and they're just accumulating data on you. And that data is often used to guess your Facebook password, right? All it takes to guess your Facebook password depends on what how strong your password is, especially when most people traditionally use personal information in their passwords. It takes a couple pieces of information that a cyber criminal can garner from the quizzes that you take, or just in general what you're posting on social media. I know we all post things about our kids, sporting events, or their graduations, or whatever. We post, we put on Facebook where we graduated from high school. That's often a security question that you get asked sometimes when you're creating online user accounts. All that information can be accumulated by threat actors, and they're not doing it personally hands-on. They're not physically going to your Facebook page and reading through your Facebook page. I mean, in some cases they might be, because you might be a high value target that they're really spending a significant amount of time on. But the majority of this information is all accumulated electronically. The hackers have software and means to accumulate all of the results from a quiz with this heading or with this name. And they can accumulate all of that, and they plug that into software that can then go to Facebook's login and attempt all these username and passwords in a matter of minutes, because software can do things like that pretty fast. And then you might be thinking, well, it's not really that big of a deal if I get hacked and I have to change my Facebook password, or I'll just delete my Facebook and create another one, or I'll just let Facebook know that my password was compromised and they'll fix it. But what often happens is they've already gained a lot of other information that they can use your Facebook password to try and attempt to gain access to other systems like your home banking. Because I think we often use the same password for a lot of systems. And I do have some polls later on with what kind of passwords we're using and what kind of password footprint we have right now. Another example of the threat actors and being conducted by countries like Russia, China, and North Korea. I use those as examples because I think we all understand that those three governments are probably the three biggest enemies of the United States today. And we have others, but I think those ones have the most power and at least the most cyber ability to conduct a nefarious activity against the United States. And these countries don't care if they're hurting the United States as a whole. Obviously, that's their ultimate goal. But if they can hurt as many people within our country and cause issues within our country, they're all for that too. And I think we've seen that in the recent elections And when I say elections, I want to be careful because I don't want to get into politics at all. And there's a lot of information out there with the recent elections on whether or not they're valid and whatnot, and Russia collusion and all that good stuff. And we're not going to get into that today because I think that could be potentially a 15-hour webinar, and we would need a little bit of a different expert to try to come and talk to us about that stuff. However, it was pretty clear that there was some social media involvement by foreign entities to sway public opinion in recent elections. They actually did catch Russian infiltrators that used thousands of fake Facebook and Twitter accounts to pose as Americans and broadcast information. They actually found an entirely invented Facebook username, a Facebook user named Melvin Reddick, who posted a link to a newly created website promising leaks critical of Clinton. It was a scam and resulted in a hashtag war against Democrats that was found more than 17,000 times on the Facebook platform. And that's just a small example of the power nefarious actors have, not just on the internet, but just on one internet application that the majority of us use today. I like this next slide. It's a cool representation of cyber hacking in progress. There's actually a website that you can go to see this live. I don't know how real it is. I don't know how they can actually track the actual lines. But what I like best about this slide is if you look at the attack origins, you see that China is the top attack origin against the United States. And then the United States itself is second. So internal threat actors, our organized cyber criminals, and our hackers. And what I also like about this slide is look at who the #1 attack target is on the right. And we are the #1 attack target by far, over double the United Arab Emirates. And I can only imagine the United Arab Emirates are the second most attack target because of the amount of finances they have in that country. But I do not know for sure. Who's responsible for cybersecurity in your organization? Who is responsible for cybersecurity in your household and your personal finances? I think we all know that everyone is responsible. And what's interesting is with cybersecurity, the best protection, organizations, businesses, or homeowners can spend thousands of dollars on cybersecurity devices to prevent their home and their data in their house from being compromised. Businesses can spend, depending on the size of the business, can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to even millions of dollars on cybersecurity equipment, threat actors, SOC analysts, SIEM systems, intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems. All of these things, you can throw a lot of money at cybersecurity, and it all works. But the best defense against cybersecurity, in my opinion, the absolute best defense is the individual user. I mean, yes, the organization itself has to have some protection in place in the form of firewalls and that kind of stuff. But the best defense is every single user or individual person on the internet. A threat actor, for example, a threat actor might easily be able to bypass a business firewall, but he still needs credentials to access data if the network is set up correctly. And today it's really hard not to set up basic cybersecurity networks in business organizations. So we'll just assume that the proper protection is in place at the firewall and network level. The threat actors, even though they can breach the systems, the firewalls, because of vulnerabilities, or the firewalls aren't patched, or whatever, the system in place has a vulnerability or a backdoor, and it's not been discovered yet, and it's not been patched by a security patch, the threat actor almost always, not in all cases, but almost always still needs credentials to do damage, steal data, etc. So when it comes to security, my favorite person is the individual, every employee or every individual in your household. So when you're protecting your personal finances, that also includes your 8-year-old children, 8, 9, 10, 16, 18, 20-year-old kids that have internet connected devices in your household and are actively using the internet. We must, a quote that I found, we must protect our computers and data in the same way that we secure the doors to our homes. So if we live in neighborhoods where we don't have to lock our doors, that's great. I mean, some of us still do, but if we do, we got to keep them locked. And the same thing goes for cybersecurity. The FBI is touted for saying the only safe network is a network with no users. End users are the weakest link in any cybersecurity organization, or any organization with regards to cybersecurity. So you are the weakest link in your organization, and you as an individual are the weakest link in your personal finances. You have to be diligent when it comes to protecting your data and your business data. Does anybody still have sticky notes on their monitors with their passwords? I found a lot of pictures on the internet with regards to that. And let's take a poll about passwords, because we're going to talk a little bit about passwords in a minute, but I want to see right now what type of passwords or how we're managing our passwords right now. So pretty even across the board again. A third of you use the same password for everything, which we all know. I use a similar password for a lot of systems, but knowing that if one of my systems is compromised, then every system that I use with that password is compromised, right? We have to understand that we're responsible for that as individuals, not only for our personal information, but also for our business organization information. About half of you use a different password for everything. That is the industry standard these days. When you go to any cybersecurity training, they're going to tell you, we want you to use a different password for everything. If you work for an organization, they're going to make you most likely use a different password for everything. It's good practice, but it's extremely difficult to remember a password for every system that you have. And then that's where password managers come in, and it looks like a third of you are using password manager applications. And I'm sure we all know, but for those of you that don't, password manager applications are applications that store all of your passwords so that you only need to remember one password. And the application traditionally can also assign a different password for each application that you utilize, so that you know one password to authenticate your password manager, but your password manager knows all of the passwords to all of your other applications that you need credentials for. Password applications are great tools because you only have to remember one password. They are not 100% secure. They're very secure, but not 100%. I still am afraid of them because if your password manager application is compromised, then everything in it is compromised. The two main concepts that I'll talk about for personal protection and ultimately your protection in your business is your passwords, because it's the two most important things that you can do to practice excellent cybersecurity is having a good password policy, whether that's internal or a business policy, and also being able to identify social engineering. And being able to identify social engineering is becoming a little bit more challenging these days. I'm sure that we all see phishing emails probably on the daily. I'm sure we've all gotten the phone call to renew our car warranty at least 6 times this week. It is Thursday, so maybe 7 times by now. These are all attempts at social engineering, phishing scams, basically just trickery, trying to trick you into some information to compromise either your personal finances or your business access. And it's getting trickier and trickier with social engineering. And we'll take a look at some of the most recent ones so that we can help, so that we can keep staying on top of the tricks that they're using and some mitigating factors that we can start implementing. I had a poll there that I'm going to launch. Let's see if everybody's still receiving phishing emails. So not a single person answered that they do not receive phishing emails. So we should all be pretty good at least this group. We should be fairly good at identifying phishing emails. I basically treat just about every email I receive now as a scam. And I work from there. So I don't start with trust. Even if I get an email from the boss, I don't immediately start with, oh, it's an email from Scott or Rick. I immediately start with, okay, is this from Rick or Scott? How do I know? And you have to treat every email like that now, especially maybe not so much with your internal organization, but with your personal lives like Amazon and Facebook, all the social media apps, your home banking, anything that you receive. Since I've updated this slide set, I received 2 phishing emails that I can talk about to show as examples. There it is. All right. Why do we get fake emails? I think we all know, and why do we keep getting more and more? A lot of people ask me, why can't we stop these emails? Why do they keep coming? And why does it seem like we just keep getting more and more and more? And that's because it's an easy method for criminals, whether they're government organized or whether they're organized crime or whether they're individual hackers. It's easy for them to create an email, blast it out, and receive the data that they're looking for to conduct a nefarious activity. If I had time, I was going to show how to, if I have time at the end of the presentation, I was going to show how to create a nefarious link, and it only takes a matter of seconds, and it's super easy. It's easier for hackers to gather information and build schemes to get what they want by sending out mass emails. How do we recognize fake emails? I used to be able to tell everybody, well, you can easily tell broken English is a good factor, right? And that's not the case anymore. Nefarious actors have figured out, Americans got smart. They won't answer any foreign written emails anymore. So we need to figure something out. So the rumor is they hired fluent English people, and they pay fluent English people to create the emails now. So you can, in the latest schemes that I've seen, you can rarely find any type of grammatical error in the email or foreign accent in the email anymore. So now they're getting super legit. Everybody should know by now, I'm sure you've seen this in various cybersecurity trainings, that an easy way to validate a link in an email, because that's one of the ways they try to get you to get your information, is they offer a link in the email for you to click on. And that link can do a number of things. Can bring you to a website to collect data from you, or it can install malware on your device that you're clicking the email from. Those are the two main things that happen. So rule number one, when you receive an email with a link, ultimately validate that email is something that you're supposed to be receiving, and certainly don't ever click on a link until you validate that email. But also you can hover over the link, and that will tell you the true address of the link versus what the link is displaying in the email. And the same thing goes for attachments. I've seen some really good scam emails come out from Amazon. Well, they're not from Amazon, but they look like they're coming from Amazon. And they say something like, attached is your refund that we refunded you $800. And what do most people do? I think most people use Amazon, and they click on the attachment to see what they got refunded for. And again, that attachment could install malware on your computer, or it could bring you to a website to obtain more information. Here's an example of an alarmist phishing email. These are the new rage, alarmist phishing emails. I think it started with the IRS scam. The IRS scam was email and phone, where they call you and they sound like they're from the IRS, and you owe back taxes and you will go to jail if you don't take care of this. Scary stuff. I mean, who isn't afraid of the IRS, either as individuals or as business owners? So that was a very successful scam, and now everybody knows that the IRS won't call you if they're going to be starting an investigation, or they won't call you if you owe money. They'll do things differently, right? I don't really know what they do, because I've never owed the IRS any money. I think they'll send me some letters first, and then maybe go from there. So this email is kind of hard to see, but you can see it's an alarmist phishing email that looks like from a legitimate source. It's got the Intuit brand on the bottom. Everybody knows QuickBooks is owned by Intuit, is the parent company. And to avoid service disruption, kindly confirm now. All right, click on that link. Well, what exactly does that link say? Here's one that I got right as I was updating this PowerPoint presentation for you guys. I got this email from Amazon. I don't think you can see it, but we'll look at the reply address in a minute. But if you hover over the check now button, you get this address, HTTPS. And that was one thing we used to tell people too. Always look for the S. Make sure there's an S if you're going to be logging into websites. And that's still true, but a lot of people thought the S, it does stand for secure, but it doesn't mean it's secure. So threat actors are making websites with the S all day long now. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's secure, but if it's a site that you're going to, like your home banking, you need to make sure that the S is there still. But this website is it's just garbage, not an Amazon website. I didn't click on it to see where it takes me because I don't know what it's going to do, if it's going to install malware on my computer or whatnot. But we can ultimately, I found that address just by putting my mouse over the check now button. It doesn't work on this PowerPoint presentation, but. And then the reply address I blew up because I really wanted you to see this too. You can see the reply address from Amazon is actually this jumbled up characters at agentofficemail.com, right? We know Amazon doesn't need to use a third-party email source. They're big enough to have their own. We know if the IRS is sending us an email, it's going to be, you know, at something government.gov or something more official. So those are two quick ways to identify an email as a scam without worrying about the English of the email. And then I'm going to start speeding this up a little bit because we're running out of time. So yeah, this was a scam I got the other day. One of my slides earlier said that these scams can happen to anybody, right? I got a phone call about 2 weeks ago from a colleague of mine, a doctor. He's a surgeon, orthopedic surgeon, young, tech savvy doctor, does surgeries with robots and computers and stuff like that. So he's not shy to the tech world, and he's not shy to scams. Very intelligent person. Calls me up and says that he got an email from Apple that said, hey, we're monitoring our phones and we found that your phone, your Apple iPhone, has a virus on it. And he's like, okay. And the guy's like, and they've already scammed you out of $1,200 out of your bank account. And we need to take care of this right now. And he's like, okay. And the guy told him, go to your phone and go to settings, general, and the legal and regulatory, and tell me what it says there. So my friend does this and he goes and he says, okay, I'm there. And the guy says, does it say United States? And he said, yeah. He goes, does it say anything else? And he says, yeah, it says Canada, Europe, Australia, New Zealand. He said, that's what they did. That's what the malware, that's what the virus did. They added those other countries. You don't live in those countries. So that's actually the virus that's scamming your bank account out of money. So we need to get this taken care of. I'll fix this for you right now. And my guy's like, okay. And he's like, I just need your bank account information to get this charge reversed. And he's already on his phone pulling up his bank account app, and he's looking and he doesn't see a $1,200 charge. So he's already starting to question the validity of this. And the guy's like, he tells the guy, well, I don't see a charge to my bank account, so I think I'm good. You know, I think I haven't been scammed. And the guy's like, well, it's going to come through. I can see it on my end. We need to fix it right now. And it was Friday night, and he said, well, or Saturday night. And he said, well, I'll just talk to my bank on Monday, or we can wait till Monday when I can get a hold of my bank or something like that. And the guy said, no, we can only fix this right now. So it was basically a scam, but I thought it was a pretty good one, because when he messaged me that, I'd never heard of it before. So I have an iPhone, so I pulled up my iPhone. And I'm like, I'm gonna look at my iPhone, and I wait. Sure enough, I have United States, Canada, Europe, and Australia. I wish I had a poll right now. How many of you actually knew that said that in legal and regulatory? How many of you visited legal and regulatory on your iPhone or your Droid to see what it says? I would venture to say that probably none of us have, because it really doesn't mean anything to us, and it really doesn't matter. So they come up with scams like that. I thought that was a unique one because it seems to be brand new. It's the only time I've seen it, but I think we'll see it a lot more. Quick poll here about your passwords. Really important to cybersecurity as an individual and at the business level to have good passwords. So these are pretty much the last couple of slides are my takeaway for this presentation. what can we do as an individual, and what can we do to protect our businesses from cyber incidents? And they're super easy. It's easy for the individual to protect themselves, and it's easy for the individual to help protect the businesses. We just went over, identifying social media or social engineering emails. We didn't talk about phone calls, but they're pretty much the same. You just have to question every phone call you get. You have to question every email you get. It's just the new standard for the times we're in right now. Always question an email, always question a phone call. Phone calls easy. You can, if they're claiming to be your financial institution or the IRS, you can just ask for a callback number or an agent number or whatever. We know how to do that. But personally and business-wise, best practices, super easy to do. Always keep your stuff updated. I'm sure you've heard that. Keep your stuff updated, security patches, everything installed. Don't ignore them when they pop up on your computers. Do them. If you work for a business with a management policy, they'll probably do them for you, but you need to do that on your individual devices too. When Apple releases their update or Droid releases their update, do them immediately. Don't wait. It's not worth the risk. If there's multi-factor authentication available with anything that you log into, use it, enable it, configure it. Home banking, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, they're all going to multi-factor authentication. If triple factor authentication is available, enable it. These are all methods, easy methods to combat cyber threat actors. They're super easy. Passwords. It's super easy to elevate your password strength and protect not only yourself and your business. Oh, I have backup data on here as well. I really like ransomware is really popular. So if you're worried about ransomware, which we all should be worried about ransomware, the one thing that can completely eliminate the risk of ransomware is if you have a backup, a good backup of your data. And I'm talking, maybe if you're a business organization, you might want to have more than one backup in a day. But if you're an individual person, you might get away with one backup a week or a month. But if you have a backup and your data has been locked by a threat actor and they want you to pay them to get it back, you have a backup of that data, guess what? That ransomware incident doesn't matter to you. If you're a business and you have backups twice a day, you might lose some data, especially the size of the business you're in, but you're not going to have to pay as much to get your original data back if you have backups of the most recent data. So passwords, it looks like less than half of you are using personal information, your passwords. That's good. You've got to eliminate it. It's super easy to eliminate personal information, your passwords, and it goes a long way in cybersecurity. So the majority of you, about 70% of you, are not using personal information. So good job. And then characters, looks like everybody's in the 9 or more character range. And that's awesome as well. It's easy to create a 10 character password, and it takes a 10 character password takes 10 years for a software brute force attack to compromise. Threat actors aren't going to wait 10 years. 10 character passwords are the new minimum standard. Whether they're complex or not, as long as they don't have personal information in them. So what happens when you have a 10 character password, but 7 of the characters are your child's name, or 8 of the, like Jeffrey 10, and Jeffrey's 8 characters and 10 is my whatever random number. That actually becomes a 2 character password when it comes to a threat actor. Okay. That's important to note, because if they're doing social engineering on you, if they're doing phishing on you, they're going to have your name in a database for brute force password attacks. And so your 10-character password with private information, you have to subtract the characters of your private information out, and that's how big your password is.
Hey, Jeff, this is Rick. I'm realizing that we just have a couple minutes
We
left.
talked about this, and this is pretty standard, complex passwords, numbers, uppercase, lowercase, and non-alphanumeric. Must not contain the username. These are all standard. Here is the latest and greatest method that the industry is pushing. And I'm just going to leave this slide up and ask if anybody has any questions, because I got my 2-minute warning and we definitely want to leave time for questions. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll answer them. Until I have a question, this is the new method of creating a quote and then taking the first letter of each quote and then changing some of the letters with special characters, like I's with 1s and O's with 0s. I also put this slide up. It's a check my password strength. If you go to this website, put your password in, it will tell you how many years it will take a threat actor. And I need to be quiet because Rick is talking. And so I will be quiet and unmute.
All right. Well, thank you, Jeff. And sorry to interrupt, but I know people want to respect your time and we're just a minute away. Again, if you have questions, please put them in the chat area and we'll see if we can grab them or at least follow up with a response to you. We wanted to let you know that we very much appreciate you taking the time today and hope that you learned something of value. And Alicia is going to post 3 links into this chat area. The first is a link to Jeff's page on our website in case you want to find some more information about Jeff or reach out. The second is a link to digital forensic articles that might be of interest. We have a pretty big library of articles that we've written over time about various aspects of digital forensics, including cybersecurity items. And the third link is for a contact form that you can use to sign up for our newsletter or to reach out with additional suggestions or questions. We actually send out a newsletter every couple of weeks that has information about various areas of expert witness knowledge that we think is valuable to the people on our list, and we welcome you to join us. And I also invite you that if you know of other subjects that you would like to see us address in our upcoming series of webinars, feel free to share your thoughts in the chat room or to use the contact form. We really want to make sure that as we bring these webinars forward, we have the subject matter that is most interest to you and deliver that in a way that's as powerful and valuable to you as possible. And with that, I know we're at our time. Thank you very much for being with us today, and we look forward to seeing you in a future webinar.